The phone rang. It was midnight. The sound sliced through the quiet of my small flat. I never got calls this late, not anymore. I picked it up. A voice, raspy and urgent, spoke from a world I'd left behind. Steele? It's about Mason. My gut tightened. Mason was dead, killed in action 5 years ago. That was the official story, the one that haunted my nights. I listened, my knuckles white on the receiver. The voice said Mason was alive, a prisoner, held by an arms dealer named Ivan in a remote Russian fortress. The line went dead. The silence that followed was heavier than a tombstone. I stood there for a long time. The city lights outside my window seemed distant, like stars from another galaxy. Mason, alive. The words echoed in my head, a relentless drumbeat against the walls of my skull. We had made a pact a lifetime ago, under a desert sky. Never leave a man behind. It was the soldier's creed, but for us, it was more. It was a blood oath. The army had given up on him. The world had forgotten him. But I hadn't. I couldn't. Loyalty wasn't just a word you threw around. It was a debt, and it was time to pay. My decision was made before the sun came up. I wasn't going to the authorities. They would get tangled in red tape, in politics, in reasons not to act. This wasn't a job for a committee or a government. It was personal. Ivan was a ghost, a phantom in the intelligence community, and his fortress was said to be impenetrable. Good. I worked better alone, no team to worry about, no chain of command to slow me down. Just me, the mission, and the promise I made to my brother. I started packing, a bag with the essentials, nothing fancy, just the tools for a very specific job. The journey was a blur of forged papers and quiet borders. I moved like a whisper from one shadow to the next. I took cargo planes and rickety buses. I walked for miles through frozen forests. Russia in winter is a harsh mistress. The cold bites deep, right to the bone. It tests you. It wants to break you. But I had a fire burning inside me. It was the thought of Mason, alone in the dark. That fire kept the cold at bay. Every step, every shiver, every kilometer closer to that fortress was fueled by a single, unwavering purpose. I was coming for him. The fortress was exactly as described. A brutalist concrete monster squatting on a snow-covered mountain. It looked like a scar on the face of the earth. Barbed wire fences glittered under the cold moon. Watchtowers stood like silent sentinels, their searchlights cutting arcs through the darkness. Guards patrolled the perimeter, their shapes dark against the white landscape. It was a place designed to keep people in, a place designed to crush hope. I watched it for 2 days from a ridge, learning the patterns, the routines, the tiny cracks in its armor. Patience is a weapon. And I was very patient. I made my move during the graveyard shift when the cold was at its worst and the guards were tired. I cut through the outer fence, the snip of my wire cutters a tiny sound lost in the howling wind. I moved low and fast, a phantom in the snow. I used the shadows cast by the buildings, the blind spots between the security cameras. Every sense was on high alert, the crunch of a boot on gravel, the smell of cheap cigarette smoke on the wind, the distant hum of a generator. This was my world, the place where I was most alive, the place where a single mistake meant death. Inside the main complex, the air was thick with the smell of oil and stale sweat. Corridors stretched out like a maze, lit by flickering fluorescent bulbs. I moved silently, my boots making no sound on the concrete floor. I took down 2 guards without a sound. A quick, efficient process. No malice, just necessity. They were obstacles. I was on a timeline. I found a schematic of the facility in a security office. It showed the detention block in the lowest sublevel. The heart of the beast. That was where they would be keeping him. That was where I would find Ivan. Getting to the sublevel was a descent into hell. More guards, more locked doors. I used everything I had learned, every trick, every brutal piece of hand-to-hand combat. I was a ghost in the machine, a spanner in the works. They never saw me coming. They just felt the result. I reached the final door, heavy steel, a keypad lock. I bypassed it quickly. The door hissed open. Inside, it was dark and cold. A single figure was chained to the far wall. His head was bowed, his hair was long and matted, but I knew him. Even in the shadows, I knew him. Mason, I whispered.
Took you long enough, Jack.
His head lifted slowly, his eyes, even in the dim light, found mine. For a second, he just stared. Disbelief, then a flicker of recognition, a ghost of a smile. His voice was rough from disuse. I went to him, my tools making quick work of the chains. He was weak, thinner than I'd ever seen him, but the old fire was still in his eyes. He leaned on me as he stood, It was a long way back to the surface, but now there were two of us. The odds had just improved. Brotherhood was a force multiplier. Our escape was loud. The time for stealth was over. Alarms blared, their angry cry echoing through the concrete halls. Guards swarmed towards us. Mason was weak, but he could still fight. We moved back to back, a two-man army against a tide of enemies. We fought through the corridors, a whirlwind of calculated violence. We were a team again. We didn't need to speak. We knew each other's moves, anticipated each other's actions. It was a brutal dance we had perfected in the dust and heat of forgotten wars. We were brothers in arms, and we were going home. We burst into the main hall, and there he was, Ivan. He stood on a raised platform, flanked by his best men. He was a big man, dressed in an expensive suit that couldn't hide the ugliness underneath.
The famous Jack Steele. Come all this way for a ghost. Touching loyalty. Kill them.
He applauded slowly, a mocking smile on his face. The final fight was a storm of chaos. I moved towards Ivan. Mason held the others back. It was a promise I had to keep. I reached Ivan. He was strong, but he was a bully, not a soldier. We fought. It was brutal and personal. He fought for money and power. I fought for my brother. It ended quickly. I left him on the floor and went back to Mason. We fought our way out of the fortress, into the biting wind and the promise of dawn. We stole a vehicle and drove, not looking back. The fortress disappeared behind us, a bad dream swallowed by the rising sun. We were free. We were together. The mission was over. The debt was paid. The journey back was long. We didn't talk much at first. We just let the silence heal the years of separation. We crossed the border and didn't stop until we reached the coast. The sight of the ocean, vast and open, felt like a new beginning. We stood on a cliff, the sea breeze washing away the dust of the past. Mason looked better, stronger. The haunted look in his eyes was replaced by something else. Gratitude, hope. Always, I replied. It was all that needed to be said. The creed held. The promise was kept. We didn't go back to our old lives. Those lives were gone. We had been forged in fire, and we couldn't pretend otherwise. We found a quiet place, a gym in a small town where young men were looking for direction. They were lost, searching for something to believe in. We saw ourselves in them. We had something to offer. Not the art of war, but the lessons it taught us. Strength, discipline, and most importantly, brotherhood. We started a new mission, not of rescue, but of building. We would teach them what it meant to be strong, not just in body, but in character. Our days found a new rhythm. Early mornings, hard training, teaching the kids how to push past their limits, how to rely on each other. We showed them that strength wasn't about dominating others, but about lifting them up. We taught them that loyalty is the bedrock of a meaningful life. Never leave a friend behind. It became their mantra, just as it had been ours. We were no longer soldiers fighting in the shadows. We were mentors, guiding a new generation. We had found a different kind of peace, a different kind of purpose. The past would always be a part of us. The scars, both seen and unseen, were a reminder of the price we had paid. But they were not our future. Looking at the young faces in our gym, full of determination and respect, we knew we had made the right choice. We had survived the last mission, not just to live, but to give back. The bond that had pulled Mason from a frozen hell was now the foundation of a new community. We had found our way home, not to a place, but to a purpose. And that was the greatest victory of all.